Have you ever wondered why some people go through life, yet never seem to have truly shown up? They eat, they breathe, they walk the same crowded streets as everyone else, but no one remembers their name. No one talks about them after they're gone. They didn't do anything wrong, but they didn't do anything meaningful either. They simply did nothing. And so, little by little, they fade away from this world like a shadow that was never really there. Then there are people who seem the opposite. They're active, enthusiastic, always jumping in to help. One day they support something good. The next, they unknowingly support something harmful. Not because they're bad people, but because they lack discernment. Right and wrong, truth and illusion, it all blurs together, and their life becomes a roller coaster. Joy and pain mixed together, never quite finding steady ground. And maybe you see yourself in this next story. You're someone who wants to live with purpose. You try to do the right thing, choose kindness, live with integrity. But sometimes it still feels like life is working against you. You get misunderstood, overlooked, or even hurt. You might ask, why does it feel like I'm doing the right thing but still suffering? The answer may lie in this. Sometimes even the things we think are right need to be reflected on more deeply. Wisdom isn't just doing good. It's seeing clearly why we do it and how. In this vast and complex world, there are so many ways to categorize people. But the Buddha offered a profound perspective. He spoke of 4 kinds of people based on their relationship with faith and spirituality. This isn't about judging anyone. It's an invitation to reflect, to ask, where am I in all this? And where am I heading next? So let's take a quiet moment and explore these 4 kinds of people through the lens of Buddhist wisdom. 1. The 4 types of people based on their spiritual belief. In this wide, unpredictable life, there are things we can't see, but they shape everything about how we live, how we love, how we endure hardship, and how we rise again. Faith, or more specifically, faith in something beyond the ego, is one of those things. But like anything else in life, not everyone walks through the world with the same kind of faith, or any at all. Some people live their entire lives without ever asking, what do I believe in? I remember a man, middle-aged, kind, responsible, who once came to a meditation retreat outside Seattle. He pulled me aside and asked, "Teacher, I live a decent life. I raise my kids. I don't hurt anyone. But I don't believe in any religion. Am I doing something wrong?" It's a question many people silently carry. And he's not alone. There are many who live ethical, educated, kind lives, but don't believe in any spiritual path. They believe in themselves, in science, in what they can see and prove. And they're not bad people. But often, their lives stay on the surface. They understand the world, but not themselves. Not because they don't want to, but because they've never been invited to look deeper, never nudged to listen to the quiet pull of the inner world. People like that just need a moment, a conversation, a book, a loss, something or someone to open a door. Sometimes, one glimpse into something deeper can change the direction of an entire life. But if that moment never comes, they may live peacefully and still leave this world without ever having touched the essence of who they really are. Then there are people who do believe, but not based on wisdom or cause and effect. They believe in quick fixes. They believe that if they bow deeply to a statue, burn some incense, chant a few mantras, their life will magically become perfect. For them, faith isn't about inner transformation. It's a transaction. Buddhism calls this wrong view. It's when people want the fruit without planting the seed. They want blessings but refuse to live ethically. They want peace but won't let go of greed, anger, or pride. They may pray sincerely, give a lot of offerings, chant with emotion, but their mind never changes. They're still afraid, still bitter, still clinging. That's why, no matter how many rituals they perform, they stay stuck in suffering. But amid all that confusion, there are still those who walk the path of right faith. They believe in the Buddha's teaching. Beings are the owners of their karma. They don't expect miracles. They understand if they want peace, they must live mindfully. If they want good results, they must plant good causes. They begin where they are, with kind speech, generous actions, honest work. They're not perfect, but they're awake. They know where they're going and why it matters. For them, spirituality isn't a label. It's a path. That path may be slow, but it's steady. It may not be flashy, but it is full of light. People with right faith don't fear suffering because they see it as a teacher. They don't fear loss because they know nothing lasts forever. They don't blame others because they understand everything is part of the karmic flow. And then there are those who seem to believe in everything, but end up grounded in nothing. One day they're at a Buddhist temple, the next, a fortune teller, then a spiritual live stream, a psychic, a shrine, a mantra bracelet. They're not open, they're lost. They don't have a foundation in real teachings. They chase whatever feels exciting, but never pause to ask, does this bring me closer to truth? The danger isn't just believing in the wrong thing. It's not even knowing it's wrong. They think superstition is spirituality. They think attachment is practice. That's why faith isn't just about believing. It's what we believe in, how we believe, and where that belief is leading us. True faith walks hand in hand with wisdom. It's not about how many prayers you chant, but about how deeply you're willing to see yourself. It's not about being blindly loyal to a belief, but about having the courage to change, to grow, to walk a clearer path. Some truths can't be seen with the eyes, but they can be felt by the heart. Not everything you see is all there is. And sometimes, to live fully, we need a faith that's deep enough to keep us from despair, but wise enough to keep us from fanaticism. 4 kinds of people, 4 kinds of faith, 4 directions to walk. So now the question is, which one are you? 2. The 4 types of people based on their actions. During a retreat in Northern California, an elderly woman once stood up and asked the group a very deep question. She said, I haven't done anything wrong. I haven't hurt anyone. But why do I still feel empty inside? Like I'm alive, but not really living? At first, that question might sound simple, but in truth, it speaks for so many people. People who live quietly, who don't chase after fame, who never cause harm, but also never truly do anything meaningful for others either. They've chosen a path of safety, but that safety becomes so deep, they slowly disappear from their own life. There's a truth the Buddha repeated in many teachings. We're born into this life because of karma, and it's our actions that shape who we are and where we're going. When someone stops creating, stops engaging, stops moving, even if their body is still here, their spirit begins to drift away, pulled out of the vibrant flow of life. If they live an entire lifetime like that, then after death, they may fall into a strange, forgotten state, unable to be reborn, unable to move on, and remembered by no one. Like a candle quietly snuffed out in the night. No smoke, no sound, no trace. In Buddhist tradition, there are stories of such lost spirits. lingering quietly in corners of abandoned homes, near old trees, behind cracked walls. They're not evil. They don't harm anyone. They just never really lived. They didn't do good. They didn't do harm. They just didn't do anything. And now, no one prays for them. No one offers incense. No one even remembers their names. They sit in silence for centuries, a forgotten shadow in the unseen realm. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, there are those who are always acting, but their actions are harmful. They may be clever, fast, even brilliant, but they use those gifts to deceive, manipulate, and hurt others for personal gain. It starts young, maybe with cruel jokes. Then it grows into cheating, stealing, and eventually causing real pain to others without feeling guilt. In the Buddhist scriptures, it's written clearly, those who live with harmful actions in body, speech, and thought will fall into the 3 lower realms after death: hell, hungry ghosts, or animal rebirth. Not because they're being punished by some angry god, but because the karma they've created naturally pulls them into darker states of existence. Their own mind becomes the prison. Even just one unwholesome thought, if left unchecked, can set off an entire life headed down the wrong path. And once that path ends, they may no longer get to choose where they go next. And then there's another kind of person. They act. They do things. They're involved. But not all their actions are wise. One day, they're volunteering for a good cause. The next day, they're helping spread lies without realizing the harm they're part of. One moment, they're lighting incense at the altar. The next, they're shouting at their family without restraint. Not because they're bad, but because they lack the wisdom to tell right from wrong. Their heart is in the right place, but their mind isn't clear. They're easily swayed by others. Do what sounds right. Follow the crowd. And so their life becomes a mix of good luck and bad. They do something kind, earn good karma, then turn around and undo it with something careless. If they don't wake up, they stay stuck in that loop forever. Someone once asked me, "Teacher, I don't know if what I'm doing is right or wrong, but I try my best. Isn't that enough?" And the answer is, good intentions are beautiful, but not always enough. We need wisdom to guide our actions, because sometimes, even a kind heart without awareness can still cause harm without meaning to. Finally, there are people who, once they've seen the path clearly, choose to live with integrity. They act, but with thoughtfulness. They follow their conscience. They observe precepts. They choose the right things to do and say no to what feels wrong. They're not loud. They don't need attention. But everything they do, even the smallest gesture, carries meaning. They stay quiet when there's no need to argue. They speak up when something true is at risk. They walk away from profit if it violates their ethics. Sometimes, the world may see them as naive, as someone who misses opportunities. But deep inside, they know exactly why they live the way they do. The Buddha taught, one who keeps precepts and does good will be reborn in the good realms. Like a seed planted in rich soil, it will eventually blossom into sweet fruit. Their path may seem slow. They may struggle more than others, but the road they walk is wide open because they walk with a clear heart and leave behind footprints of peace. In this life, action or inaction creates your destiny. No one can stay silent forever and still expect to be remembered. No one can do wrong and escape the consequences. And no one can keep living in a blur of right and wrong without getting swept up in the chaos of their own karma. A mindful person is someone who knows exactly what they're doing, and every step they take is filled with clarity and compassion. 3. The the 4 types of people based on life purpose. There's something strange about how we live. Many people go through an entire lifetime without ever asking themselves, what am I really living for? They wake up each morning, have their coffee, go to work, come home, eat dinner, scroll through their phone, and go to bed. Day after day, month after month, it all blurs together. Life runs like clockwork, but deep down, there's this quiet emptiness because they don't know where they're going. A life without purpose is like a boat without a rudder. Wherever the wind blows, it drifts. Wherever the waves push, it floats. And when the storms of life come, they crash, they shatter, they get swept away. The Buddha spoke about this often. He said, beings wander in samsara because of ignorance. Ignorance, not of facts or school knowledge, but of not seeing clearly what truly matters in life. Lacking a purpose doesn't mean peace. It means you're just floating. And when you float, you're easily pulled into subtle traps. Doing the wrong thing because someone told you to, chasing the crowd because they look successful, choosing the easy way instead of the right way. Bit by bit, you lose yourself without realizing it. Now, there are people who do have goals, but unfortunately, they're pointed in the wrong direction. Some grow up dreaming of fame. As adults, they pour everything into chasing the spotlight. Money, power, attention. Everything they do is to prove, I'm better than everyone else. And even if they reach the top, own luxury homes, gain followers by the thousands, they often still feel empty. Because inside, they never truly touched a peaceful joy. I remember one retreat. A well-dressed man walked quietly into the meditation hall. Afterward, he came to me and said, I have everything most people want, but every morning I wake up feeling this quiet kind of exhaustion. His goal wasn't wrong, but it was built on needing validation, on chasing an image, and that leads us further away from who we really are. The Buddha said, even if a fool lives 100 years without understanding purpose, they're not equal to one wise person who lives just a single day with insight. But then there are others who live with a beautiful purpose. They don't chase status. They're not obsessed with wealth. They live to serve, to love, to give. And the amazing thing is, they don't get tired from it. Whether it's a nurse caring for dying patients, a teacher in a remote village, a father working 2 jobs so his kids can have a better future, or a gentle elder picking up trash in the park with a soft smile. They all carry the same steady flame, the purpose to serve something greater than themselves. They don't brag. They don't seek praise. But just being around them makes you believe in goodness again. People like that, when hardship comes, they don't complain. When challenges rise, they don't give up. Because they know every step they take is part of something meaningful. And then there are those who want everything. They don't really live. They just keep chasing. Today, they want to be an artist. Tomorrow, a business owner. The next day, a monk. Then famous. Then invisible. They dream constantly, but never commit. Not because they're bad, but because they haven't stopped long enough to ask, what truly matters to me? Their heart is like a child in a toy store, excited by everything, but not really valuing anything. Living like that, it's easy to lose direction, because when we aren't clear inside, the world outside full of distractions pulls us far away from who we are. So, what does it mean to live a meaningful life? Is it about success, fame, and wealth? Or quiet sacrifice with no name attached? There's no one-size-fits-all answer. But there is one truth. A life of purpose always walks hand in hand with awareness. Awareness to ask, is what I'm chasing making me a better human being? Awareness to pause when we realize we're following illusions. Awareness to choose a path, even if it's hard, that leads to a lighter heart and fewer regrets. In the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha taught, one with right thinking knows what they're living for, where they're going, and what they must let go of. Your life purpose may not look like someone else's, and that's okay. But if it helps you live more kindly, more deeply, and with more care for others, then it's a path worth walking. And if there's one thing to carry with you, it's this. Live your life so that every step you take leaves behind the imprint of a soul with direction. 4. The 4 types of people based on their attitude towards suffering. Suffering, it's something every one of us has tasted. Sometimes it's just a quiet sadness in the heart. And other times, it's a storm that feels like it's tearing our whole world apart. Life never promised to be easy. But here's the thing. The real issue isn't the pain itself. It's how we respond to it. Some people choose to run from it. Some choose to blame others. Some learn to accept it. And some go even further and learn to transform their suffering into inner light. At a Dharma talk in Boston, a young woman came up to me afterward, tears in her eyes. She said, "I know I'm in pain, but I'm scared to face it. So I bury myself in work, in social media, in shallow relationships, anything that keeps me from feeling." Sound familiar? This is how so many people live today, distracting themselves from pain by staying busy, staying entertained, or numbing themselves with temporary pleasures. But running from pain doesn't make it disappear. It only drives it deeper. And one day, when there's nothing left to hold on to, that buried pain rises up, and it can sweep everything away. The Buddha called this ignorance of suffering. When we refuse to face the truth will find a way to call us back, sometimes gently, sometimes painfully. Then there are people who don't run, but choose to blame. They're in pain, so they lash out. They blame the people who hurt them. They blame life. They blame karma. They even blame the universe for being unfair. And in a way, that's understandable. When suffering hits hard and fast, our first instinct is often anger to find someone or something to hold responsible. But here's the danger. Blame, if repeated enough, becomes a habit of the heart. And from that habit grows bitterness. They start to see life as unfair, people as fake. The world is dark. Nothing really gets better. And the pain just lingers on, endlessly. There's a teaching in the Dhammapada that says, holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone, but you are the one who gets burned. Then there are those who choose to accept suffering. They don't deny it. They don't blame anyone. They simply sit down, breathe with it, and allow themselves to feel it fully. They understand. Joy comes and goes. Sadness comes and goes. Pain is part of being human. There was once a layperson who lost his son in a tragic accident. Everyone told him, "Be strong, move on." But he chose to just sit quietly with his grief, to feel every bit of it without rushing to escape. Months later, he told me, "I haven't forgotten the pain, but I no longer fight it. It's become a real part of who I am." That's mindful acceptance. It's not weakness. It's not numbness. It's wisdom. Seeing that suffering, like flowers and compost, is just part of life's soil. And finally, there are those rare individuals who go beyond even acceptance. They transform suffering. They don't just survive it. They use it. Like a lotus blooming from the mud. Like light that shines brightest after passing through darkness. They walk through pain with a clear, compassionate heart and become softer, deeper, more loving because of it. Pain doesn't harden them, it opens them. And through their own healing, they start lifting others who are hurting too. In the Four Noble Truths, the Buddha taught dukkha, suffering, samudaya, origin, nirodha, cessation, magga, path. Suffering must be recognized. Its cause must be understood. Its end is possible. And there is a path to transformation. Without suffering, there would be no path. Without pain, we could never truly understand compassion. So, 4 types of people. 4 ways of walking through suffering. We all suffer, but not all of us know how to suffer well. And if there's one thing worth remembering, it might be this. Suffering is not our enemy. It is a stern, honest teacher, but a deeply committed one. If we're willing to learn from it, we grow. If we're brave enough to transform it, we awaken. 5. The 4 types of people based on how they love. Love is a topic everyone thinks about, but not everyone truly understands. We often hear things like, as long as you love, that's enough. It sounds beautiful, so simple, so human. But in real life, love without wisdom can quietly become the root of deep suffering. Over the years of working with students and practitioners, I've seen a pattern that keeps repeating. Many people end up heartbroken, not because they didn't know how to love, but because they loved the wrong person. There was a woman who once opened up during a retreat. She said, "I gave that person everything I had, but in the end, all I was left with was pain and loss." She wasn't weak. She wasn't foolish. She just placed her love in the wrong place. And when we love the wrong person, the cost isn't just a broken heart. Sometimes it's years of confusion, of clinging, of blindness. And while some people love the wrong ones, others go through life without loving anyone. They live like a stone, cold, closed off, untouched, disconnected. They might fulfill their duties. They might go through the motions. But inside, there's no warmth, no tenderness, no glow. They see beauty but don't feel moved. They meet kindness but don't feel grateful. Look into their eyes, and you'll see an emptiness words can't quite describe. Maybe it's an old wound. Maybe they never learned how to open up. Maybe they were never shown love in the first place. But whatever the reason, a heart that doesn't know how to love is a heart that's slowly withering. In the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha once said, "The heart of loving kindness is like a river. Wherever it flows, it brings coolness and nourishment." Someone who doesn't love anyone can't offer that coolness to the world around them. And then, there are those who love everyone, without discernment, without boundaries, without wisdom. At first glance, that sounds noble, even compassionate. But in reality, it's a kind of blind affection. People like this are often taken advantage of. They fall into toxic relationships. They support people who cause harm without realizing it. It's like leaving your door open for everyone, without knowing who's a guest and who's a thief. When we love without clarity, we exhaust ourselves, lose direction, and eventually lose ourselves. In Buddhism, compassion is not just an emotion. It's not a blind reaction. It's a conscious, clear-sighted intention. True compassion must walk hand in hand with wisdom, with clarity and healthy limits. It's not just about who you love, but how you love and knowing when to stop, especially if love becomes attachment or control. And finally, there are people who know how to love well. They don't rush. They don't fall just because they're lonely. They don't get attached just to fill a void. They choose connection with people of integrity, depth, and vision. They love with their heart, but also see with an awakened eye. When they love, it's deep, it's real, and it's rooted. They don't lose themselves in love. They find themselves more clearly in it. Their love makes them wiser. It helps the other grow. And it makes the world around them a little softer. This kind of love doesn't drag you down. It uplifts. It expands. It nourishes. The Buddha never told us to suppress love. He simply reminded us, love alone is not enough. It must be guided by understanding, by clarity, by wise boundaries. And within those wise boundaries, love becomes a force for transformation. So if you don't yet know how to love, learn to open your heart. If you've loved the wrong person, learn to heal, reflect, and grow. If you love wisely, keep nurturing that love with awareness. And if you love everyone indiscriminately, pause, reflect, and learn to choose. Because love, when careless, becomes attachment. But love, when held in wisdom, is a path toward true freedom. 6. The 4 types of people when facing their mistakes. Let's be honest. None of us get through life without making mistakes. Sometimes we mess up because we didn't know better. Sometimes we lose our temper. Sometimes we chase gain and lose sight of what's right. And sometimes we simply ignore a kind word of advice at the wrong time. But what really matters isn't how many mistakes we've made. It's how we respond when our mistakes come to light. How someone reacts when they're called out says a lot about their inner maturity and spiritual growth. Because when the ego is touched, that's when the real person shows up. There are people who refuse to admit they've done anything wrong. No matter what anyone says, no matter how clear the facts are, they'll twist the story, deny it, justify it, or pretend they didn't hear it. Their ego is so inflated, it doesn't allow them to even consider the possibility that they might be wrong. And that's tragic, because denial like that locks the door to real transformation. Even if they're smart, talented, or successful, they stay trapped inside a bubble of self-importance. In Buddhism, this is a form of mana conceit, one of the mental fetters that bind us to suffering and samsara. Conceit keeps us from bowing down, from softening, from growing. As long as we're clinging to it, the gate to change stays closed. Then there are those who don't deny their mistakes, but still try to shift the blame. They say things like, "I lost my temper because he drove me crazy. I failed because they didn't help me. I acted badly because the situation was too difficult." They don't reject the fact that something went wrong. They just don't want to own it. It's always someone else's fault, or something outside their control. But the Buddha taught us clearly, each person is the owner of their actions, heir to their own karma. No one can take the fall for us, and no one can do the healing for us. When we blame others, we're actually handing over our power to change. And in that game, we always end up the weaker side. Now, some people do take responsibility. They admit their mistakes. They say, "Yes, I was wrong." They try to change. They try to make things right. But sometimes, they still fall back into old patterns. Why? Because habits are strong. Because the environment around them doesn't support growth. Because the space between wanting to change and actually changing is a steep hill to climb. But these people, they're precious. They may stumble, but they're awake enough to try. Each failure becomes a lesson. Each step forward, no matter how small, is a victory. In Buddhism, this is the true spirit of practice. Not perfect, but real. Nobody walks the path of awakening without falling at least a few times. The question is, when we fall, do we rise again, humbler and wiser? And then there's a rare group, the ones who not only admit their mistakes, but deeply repent from the bottom of their hearts. Not just lip service, not saying sorry to move on. Real repentance, a sincere remorse, combined with a powerful intention to change from the inside out. These people don't beat themselves up. They don't fall into guilt or shame. They don't say things like, "I'm a terrible person," or "I'm worthless." Instead, they face their mistake with calm awareness. They absorb the lesson, and they turn it into wisdom. A teacher once said, "When someone truly repents, they're no longer the same person." That very act transforms them into a newer, stronger, wiser version of themselves. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha said, even if one has done wrong, if they abandon it, reflect on it, and do good, they become like the moon emerging from behind dark clouds. People who can truly repent have a powerful inner strength because they're not afraid to see themselves clearly. They don't hide. They don't run. They transform. So, 4 kinds of people, 4 different ways of facing mistakes. No one is perfect, but some shut their hearts and others open theirs to grow. And here's the truth. Mistakes, if handled wisely, can become fuel for awakening. But if handled poorly, they become chains that keep us stuck in the same old pain. So remember this. A wise person is not someone who never makes mistakes, but someone who, after making one, pauses, reflects, and chooses not to repeat it again. 7. The 4 types of people and how they learn. There's a simple question, but if you really sit with it, it might shake you a little. What have I truly learned from this life? Not what you studied in school, not the degrees on your wall, but what you've learned from people, from failures, from heartbreak, from your own silence. What have you learned from the eyes of a kind person? From the tears after a shattered dream? From a child's laughter? Or an old man's quiet presence? Because life itself is a classroom. And the moment we stop learning, we start drifting backward. But the truth is, people learn in very different ways. There are those who go through most of their life and hardly learn a thing. Not because they lack opportunity, but because they don't think there's anything left for them to learn. They see someone doing good and shrug it off. They see someone living beautifully and call it fake or naive. They shut themselves off from anything new, rigid, self-satisfied. And while the world keeps evolving, they stand still, like a rock in a river that refuses to be shaped. In Buddhism, this is what we call avijja, ignorance. Not the absence of knowledge, but the refusal to open the heart. The stubborn belief that, I already know enough. But a person who stops learning, stops growing. Even if they look successful on the outside, inside, they're stuck. Then, there are those who learn fast but only absorb the wrong things. They see someone curse and pick it up instantly. They see someone cheat and think, maybe that's the way. Why? Because deep inside, there are already seeds of negativity. When they see something harmful, it resonates with their frequency. And just like dry, cracked soil welcomes weeds, these patterns grow quickly, without care, without effort. In Buddhist teachings, this is habitual karma. People who are used to toxic environments easily fall back into them unless there's mindfulness and a supportive space that lifts them up. Over time, they drift. Their heart hardens. And one day, they look in the mirror and don't even recognize who they've become. But then, there are those who are quietly radiant. Not because of their looks or their words, but because of how they learn. They only absorb the good no matter how small. They watch carefully. They don't rush to judge. They don't imitate everything they see. But when something noble appears, they take it to heart. When someone lives with kindness, they quietly follow that example. No one tells them to. No one praises them for it. But they learn anyway. I once met someone who visited the monastery. They didn't say much, just sat quietly, watching others sweep, chant, care for the garden. Months later, they began acting with the same gentleness, knowing when to help, when to stay silent. When asked who had taught them, they simply smiled and said, "If you're willing to watch closely, the right thing is always there." People like that grow slowly, like a tree soaking up early morning light. Not flashy, not in a rush, but solid, steady, real. In the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha taught, "The wise are those who learn from the good, who honor the honorable, and who stay humble before the unknown." Then there's another kind of learner, the kind we see everywhere these days. They imitate everything. Doesn't matter if it's good or bad. As long as it looks trendy, cool, or viral, they'll follow. These people don't live from the inside out. They live from the outside in. Like a foggy mirror, they reflect whatever's in front of them. If they're around good people, they act good. If they're around trouble, they slip right in. They lack discernment, no inner compass. And because of that, they lose their direction in life. They become copies of 1,000 different influences, but never truly themselves. In the journey of learning, what matters isn't how much you know, but what you choose to learn. And more than that, it's how you learn from life itself. With a humble and mindful heart, a wise person doesn't walk around thinking, "I've got it all figured out." They're not insecure, but they keep reflecting, refining, and opening themselves to truth. Because they know life at every moment is teaching us something. All we have to do is be quiet enough to hear it. So maybe today, ask yourself, am I learning the right things? Or just repeating old patterns? Am I choosing what to learn? Or copying whatever catches my eye? None of us are perfect, but the one who learns what's true gets closer to the light one step at a time. 8. The 4 levels of spiritual awakening. Here's a question that sounds simple at first, but if you truly sit with it, quietly, and look inward, it might leave you in silence for a long time. Which part of you is truly living your life? Is it your instincts? Your emotions? Or is it a conscious awareness, a part of you that knows who you are, breath by breath? There are people who go through almost an entire lifetime without ever once touching the presence of their inner world. They wake up, eat, work, worry, get excited, get angry, and go back to sleep. Day after day, life becomes a series of automatic reactions. They're pulled around by circumstances, by noise, by conditions outside them, and they call that living. But in truth, that's not conscious living. That's just existing. It's like a boat drifting on a river. But the one steering, it doesn't even know where it's going. No direction, no pause, and most of all, no journey inward. In Buddhism, this is considered basic ignorance, the total absence of spiritual awareness. They live as if the soul were some distant, abstract thing. But the truth is, the furthest distance in life is between you and your own self. Then there are people who live mostly from emotion more than reason. They're not fully unconscious anymore, but their minds still aren't calm enough to rise above the waves inside. Someone compliments them, they're joyful. Someone criticizes them, they're crushed. When loved, life feels magical. But one betrayal, one misunderstanding, and their world collapses. Their heart is like a wind-blown lake, always rippling, never still. Because of that, they're easily hurt, easily drained, easily trapped by the stories they tell themselves. This is the stage where many think they're deep, or that they've already understood life. But really, it's emotion wearing the mask of awareness. There's a line in the Heart Sutra, "Freedom comes when the mind is no longer leading us." As long as emotions run the show, inner peace will always feel like a beautiful dream, just out of reach. Then, there are those who begin to watch their mind. It's not that they never get upset or disappointed anymore, but they know when it's happening. They can feel the anger rising. They recognize jealousy or fear when it visits, and they have just enough space to not immediately react on impulse. This is the gateway to mindfulness. Someone who has started practicing mindfulness is walking the path inward. They don't need to become a monk. They don't need to disappear into the forest. All they need is to clearly see their mind in each moment without instantly identifying with it. That seeing, that quiet awareness, is the very first light in the dark night of delusion. And just as the Buddha taught, one who knows the mind is one who walks the path of awakening. Finally, there are a few rare who live in deep awareness. Not that they've escaped all pain, but they're no longer dragged around by it. Not that they're free of all inner storms, but the storms no longer command them. They speak with clarity. They act with wisdom. They think with presence. They know that every word they speak plants a seed, that every action waters something in their consciousness, that every thought builds or destroys peace inside. They live as if every step plants a lotus on the ground. This level of awakening doesn't show off. It doesn't wear labels. It doesn't need 10 hours of meditation a day or a perfect lifestyle. It just lives with right view, right mindfulness, and right intention. These people are the Dharma, not because they talk about it, but because they live it. And when you're near someone like that, you naturally feel inspired to be better. Not because they told you to, but because their light makes you want to shine too. So let me ask you, where do you see yourself on this journey? Maybe you've lived by instinct. Maybe you've been ruled by emotion. Then one day, you began to sit quietly, noticing your thoughts. And maybe, just maybe, there were moments of deep peace inside you. That's okay. Awakening is not a straight line. It's not about arriving somewhere. The most important thing is, you're still walking. The Buddha never forced anyone to awaken. He simply showed the path, and each of us must walk it for ourselves. Awareness isn't some distant, mystical state. It's the simple act of living truthfully with ourselves in this very breath. 9. The 4 types of people and how they deal with hatred. There's a question that sounds simple, but if you really sit with it honestly and quietly, it reveals many layers within. Who do you usually dislike? This question isn't meant to judge. It's meant to shine a light inside. Because how we respond to the people we don't like often reveals how far we've come on the spiritual path. Some people say, I'm a positive person. I love nature. I love animals. I love peace, but I don't really like people. That line might sound funny, even charming, but if we look closer, it's often covering up a quiet pattern of aversion, a habit of hidden dislike that's been growing unnoticed. Let's start with the rarest type, the person who doesn't hate anyone, not because they're naive or passive, but because their heart has grown wide enough to hold things they don't like. When someone wrongs them, they don't rush to blame. When someone's rude, they still choose kindness. When the world gets angry, they remain steady. In Buddhist teachings, this is a heart of true compassion. They don't get caught in petty rights and wrongs. They don't let ego or pride take the wheel. And they certainly don't think of themselves as noble. They simply refuse to carry the weight of hatred because they know hatred is heavy. And the one who suffers most is always the one who holds it. Have you noticed? When we dislike someone, the first one who gets drained is us. We carry that person around in our mind morning and night, replaying stories, repeating pain. But the person who chooses not to hate is someone who puts that burden down and walks lighter. The second type is the one who hates right. They don't get easily triggered by small stuff. But when they see injustice, they don't stay silent. When someone harms the innocent, they speak up. Their dislike isn't driven by ego, but by discernment. It's not personal, it's moral clarity. Just like the Buddha when Devadatta, his cousin, tried to harm him. He didn't respond in anger, but he also didn't pretend it was okay. In Buddhism, knowing right from wrong is essential. Compassion isn't blind, and kindness doesn't mean weakness. Some say, to practice Dharma, you must love everyone, but love must be guided by wisdom. If we accept everything blindly, even harmful behavior, that's not compassion, that's lack of insight. The person who hates right uses their awareness. They know who to stay close to and who to stay away from. And that keeps their heart and others safe. But not everyone is like that. There's a third kind, those who hate the wrong people. They dislike someone just because of a look, a careless word, or simply because the other person is too real, too different. This kind of hate is born from judgment, insecurity, and comparison. A woman once shared during a retreat, "I feel annoyed by people who are loved by many." When asked why, she lowered her head and said, "Because I wonder, why are they loved and I'm not?" That's rare honesty. Most of us feel these things, but never say it out loud. Or worse, don't even realize we feel them. People who hate the wrong person often have a narrow heart. And when we live too long in that small space, our inner eyes blur. We lose sight of what's good and pure. And finally, there are those who hate everyone. No one pleases them. Good people? Fake. Bad people? Worse. Someone helps them? Probably wants something. Someone doesn't? Selfish. They live in a world where trust can't survive, where every relationship is guarded. Every conversation is filtered through suspicion, not because they were hurt once, but because they chose to hold on to that hurt. In Buddhism, this is karmic conditioning. A heart filled with hatred creates a world filled with hate. And the cycle repeats. People like this don't just live alone. They live in emotional danger, not from others, but from their own closed heart. So, where do you see yourself in these 4 types? Maybe you don't hate much, but a few people still rub you the wrong way. Maybe you've once hated the wrong person and only realized it later. Or maybe, after being hurt for too long, you started to close your heart to everyone. And that's okay. Because the path of spiritual practice is about learning to open again, to reopen the heart, to rebuild compassion, to see clearly with both wisdom and love. And always remember, not hating doesn't mean you're weak. It means you've realized something deeper. When the heart is light, the path becomes lighter too. A true practitioner doesn't ignore the bad in the world. They just don't let it poison their heart. In life, we will face love and hate, right and wrong, good and bad. But how we choose to respond is the direction our inner path will take. Dear friends, together we've reflected on 9 kinds of people through the lens of Buddhist wisdom. From how we live, love, learn, suffer, and grow. Each type is a mirror to help us look inward. What matters is not where we are right now, but whether we're awake enough to transform. Because real change always begins with a single moment of honest reflection. When we pause, listen, and observe, the heart begins to open, and light slowly reaches the darkest corners inside us. Maybe today you realize you once disliked the wrong person, or held resentment for too long, or followed the wrong lesson. But also today, you can choose a different path. And that is the gift Buddhism gives us. The power to transform. The power to renew. The power to return to what's true. If this message touched your heart, please help us share that light. Hit subscribe to our channel Buddhism Seeds. Give this video a like, share it with someone who may need it, and leave a comment below telling us which kind of person did you see yourself in. We'll see you in the next video. May we all continue walking the path of awakening with compassion, clarity, and courage.